The heart is like a mirror. When it is polished, it reflects the truth, but when it is rusted, it reflects nothing. You are not merely informing yourself. You are shaping your soul every single day. If you do not protect your heart from an excess of negativity, the world will decide who you become on the inside. Protecting your soul from the flood of news and daily negativity is not a luxury, it is spiritual survival. And if you do not do this now, the connection with your soul will weaken without you even noticing, while you believe you are simply staying informed. Every headline you consume without discernment settles like dark dust upon your heart. Every toxic comment becomes an invisible mark within you, and you already feel it. Unexplained fatigue, constant irritability, fear disguised as caution. Rumi, the great master of Sufism, did not teach escape from the world. He taught guardianship of the heart. He knew that the heart is the throne of the soul, and when you allow anything to enter, you lose your own light. If you continue like this, your faith will weaken, your peace will turn into chronic anxiety, and you will call it reality. But Sufism offers a simple and brutally powerful mechanism. Guard what enters the heart as one protects a sacred garden. And if I show you that the true danger is not in the news but in the way you allow it to dwell within you, if you continue until the end, you will learn how to protect your soul from daily negativity and reclaim the peace that has been quietly stolen from you. You wake up, reach for your phone, and before you even feel your own body, you are already absorbing fear, tragedy, scandal, war, crisis, hatred. It feels normal. Everyone does it. But your soul was not created to carry the weight of the entire world at dawn. In Sufism, the heart, which is more than the physical organ, it is the center of consciousness and presence, is seen as a mirror. And any mirror that constantly receives dirt loses its capacity to reflect light. The problem is not that bad news exists. The problem is allowing it to define the internal climate of your soul. And you do. You allow it when you spend hours scrolling. You allow it when you argue in comment sections. You allow it when you bring into your home attention that was not born there. Rumi spoke of polishing the heart as one cleans a mirror. When he says, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I will meet you there." He points to an inner place where the soul breathes freely, uncrushed by judgments and noise. But how will you find that field if your mind is always busy reacting to the next disaster? Daily negativity creates an identity rooted in fear. You begin to see the world as a constant threat. You begin to distrust everything. Your soul shrinks, and you call this maturity. In Sufism, protecting the soul does not mean closing your eyes to the world. It means choosing what enters and what remains. There is a vast difference between knowing what is happening and allowing it to dominate your interior. When you consume negativity unconsciously, you are not simply staying informed. You are training your heart to vibrate in anxiety, and a heart trained in fear begins to forget how to trust. Rumi taught that love is the force that sustains the universe. But how can love blossom in soil where you plant panic every day? Look at yourself. Your body reacts to the news as if danger were at your door. Your heart races, your breathing changes, your muscles tighten, and none of it is happening in your living room. It is happening on a screen. The soul does not easily distinguish between what is near and what is distant when you emotionally immerse yourself in everything. You connect to tragedies you cannot resolve and ignore the light within your reach. This creates a silent erosion, and constant erosion extinguishes the inner flame. Sufism teaches something direct and simple. Watch over the heart. Vigilance is not paranoia, it is care. It is discerning what brings you closer to God and what pulls you away. If something distances you from peace, from presence, from remembrance of the divine, you must reduce its entrance, not because you are weak, but because you are conscious. Rumi said, "What you seek is seeking you. If you seek fear all day, fear will find you. If you seek light, light will find you." What are you seeking when you open that news tab for the 10th time in a single day? Protecting your soul begins with a practical decision. Limit contact with what intoxicates you inwardly. It is not a denial of reality. It is a refusal of excess. Excess is the poison. A measure of information may be useful. A constant inundation creates inner darkness, and when the heart darkens, spiritual sensitivity fades. It becomes harder to feel gratitude, harder to feel hope, harder to feel God. And without noticing, you begin to live on emotional autopilot. In Sufism, there is the practice of dhikr, which means remembrance. Remembrance of God, remembrance of the divine presence in every instant. Now tell me, how will you remember what is sacred if your mind is crowded with violent headlines and empty disputes? The soul needs silence in order to breathe. It needs moments of withdrawal. It needs beauty. Rumi spoke of music, dance, and poetry as paths of elevation because they cleanse the heart of accumulated weight. Are you giving your soul something that elevates it, or only more weight? There is a powerful image in Sufism. the heart as a house. If you leave the door open at all times, anyone enters. Any thought enters, any fear enters, and then you wonder why you feel invaded. Protecting your soul means closing the door when necessary. It means saying no. It means choosing specific times to stay informed instead of allowing negativity to become the soundtrack of your entire day. This is spiritual discipline, and discipline is love in action. But there is something even deeper. The true danger of the news is not its external content, it is the way it awakens the ego. The ego loves drama, it loves feeling outraged, it loves feeling superior or desperate. And when you immerse yourself in this emotional game all day long, you strengthen precisely the part of you that lives by reaction. Sufism seeks to dissolve excessive ego so that the soul may shine. Every time you react impulsively to negativity, you feed exactly what must be weakened. Rumi did not preach escape. He lived in difficult times. He knew war, loss, pain. Yet his poetry always points inward, toward the silent center where nothing can destroy the connection with the divine. That is the center you must protect. This is not about living alienated, it is about living anchored. If the anchor is firm on the ocean floor, the storm at the surface does not sink the ship. But if you cut the anchor and allow yourself to be carried by every wave of bad news, you lose yourself. So today, before opening any screen, try something simple and radical. Sit in silence for 2 minutes. Breathe deeply. Feel your body. Remember that you are more than a consumer of information. Repeat inwardly something that reconnects you with the sacred. It may be the name of God, it may be a phrase of gratitude. This is how you protect the soul in practice. This is placing light before allowing any shadow to enter. And when light comes first, the shadow loses its power. But the question that remains is hard and necessary. Are you willing to renounce the addiction to negativity in order to protect your own soul? Or will you continue feeding what empties you from within while claiming you are merely being realistic? You think you are merely knowing what is happening, but you are allowing fear to make its home within your heart. And in Sufism, the heart is not just emotion, it is the center of your spiritual perception. When the heart becomes contaminated, your vision of life becomes contaminated with it. You begin to see threat where there is possibility, you begin to see endings where there are beginnings, and this alters your decisions, your words, your energy. Rumi taught that the heart must be cared for like a treasure. You care for your phone better than you care for your heart. You protect your password, yet you do not protect your peace. Sufism speaks of presence. Presence means being here, whole, conscious, connected. But how can you be present if your mind is constantly traveling to the next disaster you have read about? Every negative headline creates a mental film, and you live that film internally even if none of it is happening on your street. It steals your vital energy, it steals your attention, it steals your serenity, and serenity is the soil where faith grows. Without serenity, faith becomes theory, it becomes beautiful speech, but it does not become lived experience. Rumi spoke of returning inward, of diving into the silence where truth reveals itself. He did not say to ignore the world, he said not to lose your center. And you lose your center every time you react impulsively to what you consume. You share something without breathing, you comment in anger, you emotionally entangle yourself in conflicts you cannot resolve, and at the end of the day, the one who is drained is you. The world keeps spinning. But your soul has grown heavier. Protecting your soul requires a clear decision. You are not obligated to consume everything. You are not obligated to react to everything. You are not obligated to carry everything. That is spiritual freedom. In Sufism, freedom is not doing whatever you want. It is not being enslaved by what dominates you internally. If you cannot go a single day without plunging into negativity, there is a dependency there. And emotional dependency on chaos is a silent poison. Rumi called people to awaken from sleep. And today that sleep is often an addiction to toxic information. There is something few perceive. Constant negativity creates an internal habit of expecting the worst. You begin to anticipate disaster. And when you expect the worst, you live in constant tension. That tension closes your heart, and a closed heart does not easily feel divine love. Sufism teaches that God is closer than your own vein. But how will you feel that closeness if your mind is always noisy, always anxious, always on alert? You do not need more information, you need more inner purification. Purification is not a complicated word, it is simple, it is removing excess, it is releasing what weighs you down, it is choosing better. Begin by observing how you feel after consuming certain things. Do you leave lighter or heavier, more hopeful or more bitter? That is your measure. Rumi said that whatever draws you toward love is the path, whatever pulls you away is not. Love here is not romance. It is deep connection with life. If something steals your connection with life, why do you keep making room for it? Protecting your soul also means creating daily rituals of protection. Not something mystically complicated, something simple and real. Before opening any news, open your heart to something greater. A sincere prayer, a minute of silence, an uplifting reading. A conscious breath. This shifts your inner state. When you enter the world with your heart aligned, negativity strikes differently. It does not sink as deeply. It does not take root. It passes like a cloud. But for that to happen, you must build this inner strength every single day. And here is something painful to hear. Sometimes you enjoy negativity because it gives you topics of conversation, a sense of importance, a rush of adrenaline. The ego feeds on this. It feels part of something large. It feels informed. It feels superior to the uninformed. But the soul does not feed on that. The soul feeds on silence, truth, presence. Rumi spoke of breaking the idol of the ego, and today one of the modern idols is the need to always be updated on chaos. Do you want to protect your soul? Then begin to treat your heart as a sacred garden. Not every seed may enter. Not every word deserves space. Not every debate requires your energy. Choosing not to enter certain conversations is strength, not weakness. Choosing not to consume certain things is spiritual maturity. And the more you practice this, the more you will notice your peace returning. Your breathing changes, your gaze changes, your energy changes. The authority of this channel is anchored in Rumi because he lived the transformation of the heart. He did not speak of empty theory, he spoke of direct experience with the divine. And that experience only occurs in a heart that is not suffocated by constant noise. Sufism is a path of inner cleansing. It is a path of love. It is a path of depth. But you cannot dive deep if you are always skimming the surface of headlines. You must choose where your attention will reside. And your attention is the most valuable currency you possess. Where you place attention, you place life. If you constantly place attention on negativity, you give it life within you. If you place attention on presence, on prayer, on beauty, you strengthen that instead. This is not magic, it is direction. Rumi said you are what you love. If you love chaos, you become chaos within. If you love truth, you become truth within. The question is simple and direct. What have you been loving every day? Protect your soul as one protects something rare. Because it is rare, it is unique. There is no other you, there is no other heart like yours. And allowing daily negativity to shape your worldview is handing your essence over to fear. Sufism calls you inward, to the center, to the point where nothing external can tear you away from yourself. But this requires practice. It requires decision. It requires the courage to be different in a world addicted to panic. And the more you distance yourself from excess negativity, the more you begin to notice something surprising. Your sensitivity increases. You feel more gratitude, more compassion, more clarity. And this does not make you naive. It makes you strong within. Because your strength does not come from fear, it comes from connection. Rumi reminds us that the wound is the place where the light enters you. But if you open new wounds every day through toxic content, how will the light take root? Perhaps today is the day to make a clear cut. Reduce the time. Choose more balanced sources. Silence notifications. Create defined hours. And use the rest of the time to nourish your soul with something that uplifts, music that touches the heart, poetry that recalls the divine, conversations that build, silence that heals. This is protecting your soul in practice. This is applying Sufism in real life. And as you listen to all of this, there is a question that must echo within you. Are you living with your heart guarded or thrown wide open to anything the world places before you? Because the difference between a strong soul and an exhausted one often lies in what it has chosen to let enter. And perhaps the next step is even deeper, because protecting is only the beginning. Strengthening is another level. Strengthening is another level, because protecting your soul from daily negativity is not merely closing the door. It is rebuilding the interior that has been worn down by years of excess. You did not become anxious overnight. You did not lose your lightness by accident. It was drop by drop, headline by headline, outrage by outrage. And now you feel the accumulated weight. You feel that your mind does not rest. You feel that your heart lives on alert. And Sufism does not ignore this. Sufism faces it directly. Because before ascending, one must cleanse. Before flying, one must remove what is binding the feet. Rumi did not speak to distracted crowds. He spoke to wounded souls that needed to awaken. And today your wound may not be physical war, but it is mental war, it is overstimulation, it is constant noise, it is fear repeated in high definition, and you have grown accustomed to living this way. But the soul was not created for this rhythm. The soul needs space. It needs silence. It needs depth. And when you begin to protect your interior, something slowly begins to change. You realize you do not need to react to everything. You do not need to carry everything. You do not need to be contaminated by everything. Protecting your soul also means choosing where to place your eyes. What you see enters you. What you hear enters you. What you read enters you. And all of this forms your inner world. If your inner world is composed 80% of tragedy and conflict, how do you expect to feel peace? Rumi spoke of the heart as a place where the divine reveals itself, but revelation does not occur amid constant noise. Revelation occurs in retreat. And retreat today is almost a revolutionary act. Have you noticed how, after some time away from the news, your mind feels lighter? How your breathing changes, how irritation softens? That is not coincidence. That is your soul breathing more freely. And the more you experience this, the more you realize how overloaded you were without noticing. Daily negativity has become normal, but normal does not mean healthy. And Sufism is a path of spiritual health, health that begins with the discipline of what you allow to enter. Discipline here is not called rigidity. It is love for yourself. It is saying, my soul deserves more than living in a state of constant alert. My soul deserves beauty. It deserves hope. It deserves real connection with God. And when you begin to act from this awareness, something within you strengthens. You become less reactive, less impulsive, more centered. And this does not mean indifference. It means spiritual maturity. Rumi said that you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop. But how can you feel this if you constantly feel small before the chaos of the world? Constant negativity makes you feel powerless. It makes you feel that everything is out of control, and that feeling corrodes your faith. It corrodes your trust in life. Protecting your soul is reclaiming the awareness that something greater is sustaining everything, and that you are part of it. Sufism teaches returning inward again and again, not once, every day. Because the external world will not stop producing noise, so the practice must be constant. Each time you choose not to sink into a spiral of negative news, you are training your heart to remain steady. And this is real strength. Not the strength of the one who shouts the loudest, but the strength of the one who remains whole within. There's a vast difference between being informed and being intoxicated. Being informed is knowing what is necessary to act with awareness. Being intoxicated is consuming without limit, without filter, without pause. And many today are intoxicated and call it responsibility. But responsibility begins with caring for your own soul, because an exhausted soul transforms nothing. It only replicates the fear it has absorbed. Protecting your soul also involves choosing conversations that build. If you speak only of tragedy, your heart becomes accustomed to tragedy. If you speak only of crisis, your mind programs itself for crisis. Sufism reminds us of the power of the word. The word shapes the interior. So observe your conversations, observe the atmosphere you create around you. Do you spread heaviness or do you spread awareness? Do you spread fear or do you spread serenity? The deeper you immerse yourself in Rumi's teachings, the more you perceive that the center of spiritual life is the awakened heart. And an awakened heart is not an overloaded heart, it is a clean heart, sensitive, alive. And to reach this state, you must be radical about what contaminates you. This is not exaggeration. It is reverence, it is care, it is knowing that your peace is too precious to trade for the automatic consumption of negativity. Perhaps what hurts most to hear is that you have a choice, not over what happens in the world, but over how much of it will live inside you. You do not control the headlines, but you control how long you dwell in them. You do not control others' opinions, but you control your reaction. And in the space between stimulus and response lives your spiritual freedom. Sufism lives in that space. It lives in the pause. It lives in awareness. Imagine your soul as a cup already nearly full. Each negative headline is another pour of water. Eventually it overflows. And what overflows becomes irritation, becomes fatigue, becomes despair. Protecting your soul is stopping the unnecessary pouring. It is leaving space. Space to breathe, space to feel, space to listen to what arises from within, not only to what comes from outside. And here lies something profound. When you protect your heart, you begin to perceive more clearly the presence of God in small things, in silence, in nature, in someone's gaze, in your own breath. Constant negativity disconnects you from these simple and sacred experiences. You remain always waiting for the next external shock, and you miss the beauty standing right before you. The Sufi path is not escape from the world, it is transformation of the interior. And a transformed interior sees the world with different eyes. It does not deny pain, but it does not drown in it. It does not deny problems, but it does not identify with them. You begin to act from consciousness, not from fear. And that changes everything. It changes your decisions, it changes your energy, it changes your presence. If you truly want to protect your soul, you must treat your attention as sacred. Attention is life, attention is energy, attention is direction. Where you place attention, you strengthen. So be honest, what have you been strengthening? Peace or panic, trust or fear, presence or distraction? This channel exists to remind you of who you are beyond the noise, beyond the headline, beyond the toxic comment. Rumi did not speak to please the ego, he spoke to awaken the heart. And awakening the heart today means turning off what numbs you and reconnecting with what elevates you. It means choosing quality over quantity, depth over excess. Protecting your soul is a daily act. It is a decision you repeat. And each repetition strengthens you. Each conscious choice creates a new inner identity. You cease to be a hostage to external chaos and become a guardian of your own heart. And this transforms the way you live, the way you love, the way you believe. But perhaps the most urgent question is this: if you do not protect your soul, who will? If you continue handing your interior over to any content that appears, what kind of person are you gradually becoming? Because transformation happens silently, and it can move toward the light or toward the darkness. And now that you have begun to perceive how deeply you need to protect your soul from daily negativity, there is a next step even deeper, one that few have the courage to take. There's a next step even deeper that few have the courage to take, because protecting the soul is not merely reducing consumption. It is facing the emptiness that appears when the noise fades. When you cut back on excess news and negativity, a strange silence emerges. And that silence is unsettling, because you realize how much you were using external chaos to avoid confronting your own interior. Rumi did not speak only of protection, he spoke of return. Return to the center, return to the heart, return to the presence of God within you. And that requires courage. You spend years feeding your mind with constant tension. When you stop, the body still craves stimulation. It wants the next alert, the next outrage. That is the invisible addiction. And protecting your soul means passing through this phase without turning back. It means enduring the initial discomfort until peace begins to feel natural again. Because at first, peace feels strange. It feels like too much silence. It feels like a lack of information. But in truth, it is health returning. Rumi taught that the heart is like a musical instrument. If it is out of tune, it produces noise. If it is tuned, it produces harmony. Daily negativity throws your inner instrument out of tune. You begin to react with harshness, impatience, fear, and you think that is personality. It is not. It is accumulated dissonance. Protecting your soul is beginning to tune yourself again. It is bringing gentleness back. It is allowing harmony to return. You do not need to abandon the world. You need to abandon excess. You need to abandon emotional identification with everything you see. Sufism speaks of witnessing. To witness is to observe without merging with what is observed. You can know something is happening without allowing it to invade your identity. This is the training. This is the strengthening. And it begins when you decide that your peace is worth more than your impulse to react. Perhaps you are realizing that many of your opinions were born from repeated fear. Perhaps you are realizing that part of your anxiety was cultivated day after day. This is not guilt. It is awareness. And awareness is the first step toward liberation. Rumi called people to awaken from sleep. Today that sleep may be endless scrolling, the unceasing cycle of negative news slowly draining your soul. Protecting your soul also means intentionally choosing what nourishes you. It is not enough to cut what intoxicates, you must replace it. Reading that uplifts, conversations that deepen, simple and sincere moments of prayer, walking in silence, listening to music that touches the heart. All of this strengthens the interior. And the more you nourish your heart with beauty, the less room fear has to settle. Sufism speaks of remembrance, remembering God, remembering your origin, remembering that you are not merely a body reacting to external stimuli. When you live only reacting to the news, you forget who you are. You forget that your essence is deeper than any crisis. You forget that there is something eternal within you. And protecting your soul is preserving that sacred memory. You can begin with something simple. Set clear limits, specific times, reduce duration, clear intention before consuming any content. Ask yourself, will this inform me or will it drown me? That question changes everything. It places you in control, it breaks automatism, and every time you choose consciously, you strengthen your spiritual autonomy. There is also a shift in inner posture. Instead of absorbing everything with fear, absorb with awareness. Instead of losing yourself in collective emotion, remain centered. Sufism teaches that true strength is interior. It is not shouting louder. It is not knowing more tragic details. It is remaining steady while the world oscillates. And that steadiness is born from the daily discipline of guarding your heart. Perhaps you have never considered how powerful your attention truly is, but it is. It shapes your inner reality. And your inner reality shapes your life. If you spend the entire day focused on what is wrong, your mind trains itself to seek more wrongness. If you focus on what is constructive and real, your mind expands differently. Protecting your soul is re-educating your attention. Rumi said that the wound is where the light enters you, but if you create new wounds every day by exposing yourself without discernment to chaos, the light finds no place to remain. You must close the openings through which fear constantly enters. This is not denying the suffering of the world, it is refusing to transform that suffering into your personal identity. The world has always had crises, it has always had conflicts, but not all eras have had instant and constant access to every negative detail across the planet. Your nervous system was not designed to carry global tragedies 24 hours a day. Protecting your soul means recognizing your human limits. It means accepting that you do not need to know everything in order to live consciously. When you begin to practice this consistently, something profound happens. You begin to feel more presence, more clarity, more discernment. You do not become alienated. You become more centered. And centered, you can act with greater wisdom when action is truly needed, because you are not reacting impulsively. You are responding consciously. The authority of Rumi on this channel is not aesthetic, it is essential. He taught love, presence, purification of the heart, and none of this flourishes in a heart saturated with constant negativity. If you truly wish to live Sufism, you must apply it in daily life, not merely read poetry, not merely listen to beautiful phrases, but genuinely guard your interior. Imagine waking without beginning the day in tension. Imagine sleeping without carrying heavy images in your mind. Imagine conversing without being contaminated by accumulated indignation. This is possible, but it requires firm decision. It requires cutting excess. It requires choosing differently from the majority. You must understand that protecting your soul is an act of spiritual responsibility. It is not selfishness. It is not escape. It is preparation. A strong and clean soul is more useful to the world than an overloaded and anxious one. Because a clean soul acts with clarity, with compassion, with balance. And the more you guard your heart, the more you realize that true power is not in constant information, but in conscious presence. True power is not in knowing everything that is wrong, but in keeping your inner flame alive. And that flame requires daily care. Protecting your soul also means choosing who you walk with, what you share, what you comment on. Every interaction is an exchange of energy. Every word carries weight. And when you live aware of this, you begin to filter naturally what is worthwhile and what only adds noise. Perhaps right now you feel a mixture of relief and confrontation. Relief in realizing there is a way out. Confrontation in realizing you must change habits. That is how real transformation begins. Not with theory, but with practical decision. And if you continue deepening this practice, you will realize that protecting your soul from daily negativity is not merely defense, it is the beginning of a new way of living, where the external world does not govern your internal state, and where your peace ceases to be fragile and begins to become unshakable. And there is something even deeper you must face. Every time you consume negativity without discernment, you are training your heart to live in a constant state of threat. And a heart that lives in threat cannot trust. It cannot love lightly. It cannot rest. Sufism is the path of trust in God, of conscious surrender, of serenity born from faith. But how can you trust if you spend your entire day reinforcing the idea that everything is collapsing? Protecting your soul is breaking this inner cycle of continuous threat. If you understand that protecting your soul from daily negativity is not exaggeration but spiritual survival, then the decision begins now. The world will not stop producing fear, but you can stop allowing it to govern your heart. Rumi reminds us that the heart is a mirror, and a dirty mirror does not reflect light. Protecting your soul is cleansing that mirror every day, guarding what enters, choosing awareness over automatism. If this message has touched you, subscribe now to the channel to deepen your understanding of authentic Sufi teachings applied to modern life. Turn on notifications so you do not miss upcoming content on spiritual protection, strengthening the heart, and inner presence. And comment, what do you need to cut today to protect your soul?